Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, our brethren in Kansas, in Georgia, in Missouri, in Texas, in Chicago, Illinois, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, Zambia, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 3 on the subject, the opening of the seventh seal. Now, I would like to begin our study reading track number 15. Let's read the statement. Track number 15 on pages 9 and page 10. It says, the seventh, the things of chapters 8 to 22, that the seventh seal contains chapters 8 to 22 is immediately seen by the fact that each chapter is connected with a conjunction, and in other words, the revelation, save for the first 5 chapters, is but a reproduction of the things which are on record within the seals, and which, as a result of the breaking of the seals, were pictorially displayed in John's sight. Track number 15, page 10. Now, the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain that the seventh seal contained 15 chapters long, right? Here in 2TG number 12, on page 30, says, the seventh seal is 15 chapters long. So the seventh seal, there are 15 chapters that belongs to the seventh seal. And we already read in track 15, page 10. That is from chapter 8 to chapter 22. So the seventh seal contains 15 chapters long, beginning from chapter 8 up to chapter 22. And the Shepherd's Rod plainly told us in 2SR page 202, it says, but the seventh sealing period, being the last, must concern the living. So, the seventh seal is addressed to the living. And that is the reason why Revelation 14 is directly applied to the judgment that pertains to the living, because it is included on the 15 chapters of the seventh seal. As stated in the General Conference of Sphasia, that the 3 angels' messages that is found on Revelation 14 is directly applied in the judgment that pertains to the living. It says here in General Conference Spatial, page 39, in fact, the 3 angels' messages are applicable to the judgment for the dead only indirectly. For the judgment for the living is the all-important event. That is, the angel is not sent particularly to explain what the judgment does to the dead, but what it is to do to the living. And then it says, so we see that the more we consider the subject, the more obvious becomes the truth that the third angel's message in its final phase is the judgment for the living, the harvest. Plainly, then, the work of Elijah is to give light on the judgment for the living. And the promise given by inspiration is that the judgment, the book of Revelation will be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. 2TG 1230. The revelation, therefore, is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. Now, let us concentrate to the subject, the seventh seal, by which such seal, being the last, must concern the living. And the seventh seal contains 15 chapters long, beginning on chapter 8. Now, I would like to go back again to our reading in track 15. page 10. It says, in other words, the revelation, save for the first 5 chapters, is but a reproduction of the things which were on record within the seals. So, the shepherd's rod made it so plain that chapter 8 to chapter 22 is a reproduction of the 2 chapters, but even more particularly on chapter 6. It says, the entire book of Revelation, save for the first 5 chapters, is but a reproduction of what had been recorded on chapter 6. So, what had been recorded on chapter 6? I would like to read 2SR page 193. So it says here, 2SR 193. Some have applied the 7 seals of the 6th chapter of Revelation, where we could find the subject of the 7 seals on the 6th chapter of Revelation, from verse 1 to verse 17. Why is it that on the 6th chapter of Revelation, the 7th seal had not been mentioned? Because it was found on the reproduction on chapter 8. So, what does it mean by the word reproduction? That is a noun, meaning to produce again, to reproduce. So, the 7th seal on chapter 8 is only a reproduction of the 7th seal on chapter 6. Because chapter 8 to chapter 22 is but a reproduction, according to the shepherd's rod, trunk number 15, page 10, that the last 15 chapters in the book of Revelation, from chapter 8 to chapter 22, is but a reproduction of what had been recorded on chapter 6. So the question is that, what had been recorded on chapter 6? The answer is found in 2SR 193, 7 seals. But you might ask the question, why is it that on the 6th chapter, the 7th seal is not mentioned? Because it was already reproduced on chapter 8. So, to understand the 7th seal on chapter 6, we need to study closely the 7th seal on chapter 8. Because the word reproduce, brothers and sisters, is to make it again. So, that reproduction of the 7th seal on chapter 8 is the only way that you could be able to comprehend the 7th seal on chapter 6. Why is it that the 6 seals were not mentioned on chapter 8 to chapter 22? Because it was already produced on chapter 6. So, in order for us to understand how does the 6 seals had been reproduced on the 15 chapters, we need to understand chapter 6, because it is in chapter 6 by which the 6 seals had been produced. In order for us to understand the 7th seal on chapter 6, we need to understand the reproduction, because that reproduction is copied from the 7th seal produced on the 6th seal, in the 6th chapter. So, that would be our study, brothers and sisters. Now, we need to create a question. Why is it that the 7 seals on chapter 6, as stated in 2SR 193, that there are 7 seals on chapter 6? That is why the statement in 2TG number 12. I would like to read the 2TG number 12, saying that if we will be talking about the book of Revelation, I would like to read it. 2TG, page 25. It says, and so when we speak of the 7 seals, we are in reality speaking of the revelation. So, in other words, if we could be able to comprehend the entire subject of the 7 seals, then the entire book of Revelation is completely unfolded. If the entire book of Revelation is completely unfolded, then the Bible is completely understood. Because it says in 2SR page 9, to understand the Bible or to understand the book of Revelation is to understand the Bible. 2SR page 9, it says, therefore, to understand that book, that is the book of Revelation, is to understand the Bible. And if you could be able to understand the Bible contained the complete formula of the plan of redemption. 1TG number 10, page 18. Now let us read 1TG number 10 on page 18. It says here, the Bible contains the complete plan of salvation for all humanity. How do I know this? I know it because its story begins with creation and ends with the earth made new. between the first and the last pages of the Bible, then lies the complete formula for man's salvation and redemption. 1 TG number 10, page 18. But the shepherd's rod plainly told us that the plan of redemption is revealed through the sanctuary construction and service. It says here in 2SR 187, in the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. So, the plan of salvation is revealed through the sanctuary construction and service. So, the statement in tract number 15, page 13, plainly told us, brothers and sisters, it says, both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene, whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceeding from start to finish. So the whole proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary was given by God to John the Beloved in his vision. But the shepherd's rod told us that although John wrote the book of Revelation, he himself could not explain it beforehand. Now, let us read 2TG number 44 on page 31. So it says here the statement given by the shepherd's rod. It says, and though John wrote them, that is the book of Revelation, he himself could not before time explain them. Then how can we do such before time and without the inspiration of the same Spirit who dictated them? 2TG 44:31. Yes, John is the author of the book of Revelation, but he did not fully understand the things that he had written. And it says in the Great Controversy 3:4:4, even the prophets who have been favored by God with a special illumination of the Spirit did not fully comprehend the true import of the meaning of the messages that they had written. And the meaning must be unfolded from time to time. But do not forget the statement in 2TG12 on page 30 that the revelation, therefore, is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. It is not just understood, but more fully understood. It is not just fully understood, but more fully understood, brothers and sisters. So, that's what it means by the statement Emmanuel, meaning God with us, meaning unto them was revealed the full knowledge of the prophetic mysteries. That is the statement in tract number 14, page 44. It says here in tract number 14, page 44. So, the statement, God is with us, implies that He is not with the nations that are affiliating themselves for mutual protection, and that therefore they shall be broken, whereas His followers shall then be delivered. Nevertheless, for God to be with us in this spatial sense, we must, of course, make a special effort to be with Him. And to do this, we must sincerely study His way and follow joyously in His stately steps, which lead us to a full knowledge of the prophetic mysteries, enabling us to avoid the pitfalls and to stand though all others fall. So what a wonderful state. The same with the statement in tract number 15, page 35, that in order for us to survive the great and dreadful day of the Lord, it says here in tract 15, page 35, the revelation, it says, having now gone through these preliminaries, the student of advancing truth should be ready understandingly to study the revelation of the things which are to prepare the way and enable him wholeheartedly to know that now the time is at hand, that a knowledge of the revelation will enable him to stand in the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So, we need not to study closely, brothers and sisters, the book of Revelation in the light of the shepherd's rod. Because accordingly, in answerer number 5, page 55, saying that the Bible and the spirit of prophecy being the sole source, the shepherd's rod, therefore, when the rod is taught, the Bible and the spirit of prophecy are taught. Answerer number 5 on page 55. Now, why is it that it is in absolute importance and necessary that the 7 seals on chapter 6 need to be reproduced in the 7th seal, beginning on chapter 8? The 7th seal contain 15 chapters long. Or what is the principal object, the particular object in view, the principal reason why God reproduced the 7 seals on chapter 6? The answer is found in 2SR. I would like to read 2SR page 200. Let's read the statement given by the voice of inspiration. 2SR page 201. It says, this book contained the names of the saints, and the 7 seals comprise prophetically the world's history, during which time the saints are sealed. These 7 periods of unfulfilled history sealed the book, and the only one that could open it, see into the future, was the Lamb, that is Jesus Christ, the Lion in the tribe of Judah. So, the voice of inspiration says, 7 periods of unfulfilled history. What does it mean? When the 7th seal is opened, brothers and sisters, it completely revealed that the entire period of the historical events from 1st seal to the 6th seal, the description given in the Bible was not yet carried out to its perfect fulfillment. And that is why it is called 7 periods of unfulfilled history. So it was not fulfilled in the historical events. And the shepherds had called it as the groundwork. Now let us read the statement in track number 5. Now let us read track number 5, page 33 and page 34. So though all such prophecies necessarily bring to our attention things which took place centuries ago, yet they are designed, like the revelation, to show to God's people things which must shortly come to pass. Fulfilled prophecies are seen, therefore, to be employed by the scriptures only as groundwork for that part of prophecy which is yet to be fulfilled. So in this study, we can easily understand that the subject 7 seals and 7 trumpets, let us distinctly separate the groundwork and the particular object in view. It is also stated in track number 5, page 32, saying, the statements which must shortly come to pass, Revelation 1 verse 1, and I will show these things which must be hereafter, Revelation 4 verse 1, go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view of showing the things lying not behind but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. So that is very plain. Track number 5, page 32. So the groundwork, brothers and sisters, which is the fulfilled prophecies employed by God as groundwork in order to build the necessary foundation to understand the particular object in view. The same with the statement in 1SR 226 saying that the type themselves were not the particular object in view. It says here, the types themselves are not the true object, no more than a photograph is, but it is a representation which pictures and unmistakable evidence the object in view. So, that statement hereafter, as stated by the shepherd's rod in 2SR 194, let's read the statement here. into SR page 194. So, 191 rather. To SR page 191. Therefore, the word hereafter in Revelation chapter 4 verse 1 means from the time of the vision pointing forward to 1844. So, whatever the fulfillment of the particular object in view recorded in the book of Revelation, it must be from 1844 onwards. But the mere fact that the voice of inspiration says, the revelation therefore is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living, perfectly indicating that the particular object in view must be found in the judgment that pertains to the living. Because it is illogical and, brothers and sisters, unreasonable if the particular object in view are in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead, but they themselves did not fully understand the entire book of Revelation. So the statement, I will show unto thee the things that will be fulfilled hereafter, that is in the period of the judgment that pertains to the living. And if that promise is now being fulfilled on this very year, then there is no other safe conclusion to admit that all the events hereafter is completely revealed by God. Now, here in 1SR Packet Edition, page 58, it says, but now at the appointed time, He Himself reveals their significance to the very people for whom they were originally and especially designed. Now, for example, let us link Prophet Ezekiel. What is that book that had been given by God to Ezekiel, by which the message will be derived from the book that Ezekiel 8. Let us read track number 1, page 29 and page 30. The way the message is derived. And then it says, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people were found in the book which he ate, the book can be none other than the Bible. So that book, brothers and sisters, by which Ezekiel 8, that is the Bible. And the Bible contained the complete formula of the plan of redemption. And why is it that God commanded Ezekiel that the message that he received from God is to write it on a tile? Let us read here in 1SR Packet Edition on page 1SR Packet Edition on page 74. Ezekiel was commanded to engrave a city upon a tile and to name it Jerusalem. The material on which the city was to be engraved being everlasting, not subject to decay, it denotes that the city in vision is one that will stand eternally, a people that shall never die. That is the 144,000 living saints. You and I, if we will be faithful, we will be among that special company. So the statement in 1SR Packet Edition, page 58, that all the significance will be revealed by God to the people by which it was originally designed to them. And who are they? The people that shall never die. And that is the reason that it will be completely understood, more fully understood during the judgment of the living, the book of Revelation. Now, I would like to read, brothers and sisters, the statement in 2TG number 14, 2TG number 14 on page 14. So let us read the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod, brothers and sisters. 2TG 14, page 14. We previously found that the judicial-like event opened with the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, the book sealed with the 7 seals. It disclosed the revelation, and with it, the heavenly assembly began its work of reviewing the past, present, and future of mankind. Now, brothers and sisters, this statement cannot be applied in the proceedings that pertains to the dead. The only statement that can be applied to the proceedings that pertains to the dead is found in track number 15. So let us read track number 15. So here, brothers and sisters, the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod on page, I think it is page 9. So let us read track number 15, page page 9. It says, the literal fulfillment of these things was to be hereafter, after John's vision. That is, in John's day, these solemn proceedings had not as yet taken place, nor were they then taking place, but they were to take place sometime after the vision, after the first century. But we already answered that in 2SR 191. That is pointing forward to 1844. Just how soon or how long hereafter or thereafter, though was not revealed to John. He was taken in vision to see and to write those eventful things which were to take place at the time of the judicial throne of Revelation 4 and 5 should actually convene. Now, I would like to go back to the statement says, just how soon or how long thereafter, though was not revealed to John, but it was revealed to Daniel. Because God gave to Daniel that 2,300 days and nights, meaning that the judicial session in the most holy place will commence at the end of the 2,300 years. So it was revealed by God to Daniel, but it was not revealed by God to John. So according to this reading in track number 15, page 9, it says, just how soon or how long thereafter, though was not revealed to John, he was taken in vision to see and to write those eventful things which were to take place at the time of the judicial throne of Revelation 4 and 5 should actually convene. As to the other things, the things which follow a result of the event, he who has the case of hell and of death assured that some were and some were to be. Revelation 1 verse 18. That is, when this divine throne convenes, then some of the things that are brought to view as a result of the event are already history, while some of them are yet prophecy. Some point back and some point forward. So, in this statement, the only things that they view is the history and the prophecy, the past and the future. But they did not view the present, brothers and sisters. Why? Why is it that during the proceedings that pertains to the dead, the only things that they view is the past and the future? Why is it that they were not viewing the present? Now, I would like to read the General Conference Special, page 24. General Conference Special on page 24. It says here, the question naturally arises now as to what is the nature of the judgment for the living. So what is the nature of the judgment for the living? Remember, whatever the nature of the judgment for the living, God did not give any information or understanding to P.T. Hotter. And he himself plainly told us in Answerer number 1, page 95. I would like to read the statement. Answerer number 1, page 95. It says, so while it was not exactly understood beforehand what the nature of the event would be, so they did not exactly understood beforehand what the nature of the event would be. Why? Because it was inscribed in present tense. Revelation 14:7. Now, we will focus to that point, brothers and sisters, and Revelation 14 verse 7. Let us read first this reading in General Conference Special, page 24. The question naturally arises now as to what is the nature of the judgment for the living. Since all of us, Seventh-day Adventists, are acquainted with the work of the judgment for the dead, we shall have no difficulty determining the nature of the judgment for the living. We know that the former is to separate in the books above the names of the backsliders and sinners from the names of the penitent and the enduring who are among the dead. It removes only their names because their bodies are non-existent. So I would like to go back again, brothers and sisters, to the question that why is it that in the proceedings of the judgment that pertains to the dead, the only things that they view, let us distinctly separate the time by which they were reviewing and the statement viewing. Because the word review is to see it again, brothers and sisters, right? But if you will say view, that is the first time. That is the first time by which they were viewing. I would like to read again the statement in track number 15. It says, track number 15, page 9. That is, when this divine throne convenes, then some of the things that are brought to view. So, brothers and sisters, that is the first time that they were viewing. and that is in October 22, 1844. As a result of the event, are already history. What event? Brothers and sisters, which the result of the event, the book had been opened. So, what event? I would like to ask again the question. What is that event by which, because of that event, the result, the book had been opened? Now, I would like to read 2TG number 1224. And since this is special episodes, and it can also be called our final episodes, so I would like to even make it in a more detailed manner, but only focusing to the portion by which it is not common and not discussed among the media. So I would like to ask the question again. What event by which the result of that event, the seven seals had been broken? So, or the breaking of the seven seals. 2TG 1224, it says, chapters 4 and 5, we see contain a scene of a special event. What kind of event? A special event which caused the book to be unsealed, brothers and sisters. So the word unsealed and I think opened is synonymous. So to open, here in 2TG 14:15, I would like to read 2TG 14:15. Chapter 10 discloses that the angel who opened and then open and close parenthesis unsealed. Of course, to break the seal is to open it. And the term open, brothers and sisters, in this earthly sanctuary is to understand. The same with the illustration of the book of Daniel. That the illustration that the book of Daniel is gradually open, meaning gradually understood. So if we'll say that the entire book of Daniel is open, meaning completely understood. And that is the statement given in the old symbolic code. I would like to read 3 symbolic code number 8 to 10, page 8. However, history proves that the prophecies of Daniel were not all revealed at once but slowly. The fact that we as yet do not understand the whole book proves that some parts of it are yet closed. So that is very plain. 3 symbolic code 8 to 10, page 8. So the term closed meaning not yet understood. So the term open meaning understood. And so to break the entire seven seals is to understand completely the subject of the seven seals. And to understand completely the subject of the seven seals is to understand completely the plan of redemption, by which, according to patriarchs and prophets, it is gradually unfolded from time to time. But there is an appointed time by which the entire plan of redemption will be completely unfolded. And that's what it means by the mystery of God is finished. So here in Patriarchs and Prophets, let me read to you. The Patriarchs and Prophets, page 373. Let's read it. Says, God's work is the same in all time, although there are different degrees of development and different manifestations of His power to meet the wants of men in the different ages. Beginning with the first gospel promise and coming down through the patriarchal and Jewish ages and even to the present time, there has been a gradual unfolding of the purposes of God in the plan of redemption. So, gradual unfolding, brothers and sisters. But, of course, there must be an appointed time by which the entire plan of redemption must be completely unfolded. And that is in the last generation of men, by which the plan of redemption have been completely unfolded through the book of Revelation. So, to understand the entire book of Revelation is to understand the plan of redemption. Now, I would like to read 2TG 1224. Chapters 4 and 5, we see, contain a scene of a special event which caused the book to be unsealed. That which came out of the book is, in the fullest sense, the revelation of Jesus Christ, of the one who only was worthy to open the book. So, what caused the book to be unsealed? Because of that special event. So, the book can never be opened not until that special event, brothers and sisters. And where is the special event could be found? It is found on chapter 4 and chapter 5. So the special event is found in chapter 4 and chapter 5. Now I would like to read track number 5. So let us read track number 5, page 102. Track number 5, page 102. It says here, track number 5, page 102. By that time, it was understood that the statement, the sanctuary shall be cleansed, did not mean that Christ was to cleanse the earth in 1844.
but rather that in fulfillment of Daniel 7 verse 9 and 10, he was to cleanse the heavenly sanctuary. This is the very event which opened the seals and sounded the trumpets, and which, as we have seen, John was told would be hereafter. So what is that special event? The very special event which opened the seals and sounded the trumpets? Cleansing of the sanctuary. Cleansing of the sanctuary, brothers and sisters. Therefore, in the days of John the Beloved, it is only a vision, not the fulfillment of the vision. Because the fulfillment of the vision, which pointing to the opening or the breaking of the seven seals and the sounding of the seven trumpets, will not take place until the cleansing of the sanctuary. So the special event is the cleansing of the sanctuary. That is the special event. That after that special event, which is the cleansing of the sanctuary, then the result of that special event, because that is the statement in tract number 15. It says on page 9, that is when this divine throne convenes, then some of the things that are brought to view, it did not say review, but brought to view as a result of the event. What is that special event? The very special event by which the result of that special event commenced the opening. Of course, the first seal, because it was consecutively broken, meaning in their proper order. The second seal can never be opened, not until the first seal will be completely opened. So the first seal must be opened first before the second seal will be opened, and so on. So we are pointing to the opening of the first seal, brothers and sisters. Now, let us study closely, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to emphasize this very important event. What is the special event? It was answered, tract number 5102. The cleansing of the sanctuary. Now, brothers and sisters, the sanctuary and the books are two different things. We need to understand that clearly. I would like to read first, brothers and sisters, the statement here on consecrated way to Christian perfection. And the reason that I need to focus on this portion, because it is not understood by the Berean and it was not explained, although it is barricaded by thus said the Lord. Now, I would like to read first the statement here on consecrated way to Christian perfection 113. The cleansing of the sanctuary. The cleansing of the sanctuary and the finishing of the mystery of God are identical as to time, and are also so closely related as to be practically identical in character and event. So, the cleansing of the sanctuary and the finishing of the mystery of God are identical as to time. Now, and that is why B.T. Hotep says, how does the plan of redemption have been revealed? First, sanctuary construction. 2SR 187. Let us distinctly separate sanctuary construction and service. If you will say sanctuary service, that is pertaining to the book work. But if you will say sanctuary construction, the sanctuary itself. Now let us read again the statement in 2SR page 187. It is entitled, The Seven Seals and the Sanctuary. In order to make a proper application of the seven seals, we must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary service, its origin, and the object of its existence, as taught by the earthly sanctuary built by Moses. Hebrews chapter 8 verse 5. Then it says, in the sanctuary construction, so the word construction pointing to the sanctuary itself, and service, so it pointing to the judicial proceedings within the sanctuary, is revealed the plan of salvation. So if we will be saying service, that is the judicial proceedings, and the basis of the proceedings is the books, brothers and sisters, according to the Bible as well as by the shepherd's rod, right? As stated also in tract number 3, page 6. And it says, and since the books are obviously the focal point in the scene. So what is the focal point in the sanctuary service? The books. But how does the plan of redemption have been revealed? Is it only revealed to the sanctuary service by which the focal point is the books? No, it was rebuilt as well through the sanctuary construction. So if you will say, cleansing of the sanctuary, then pointing automatically, directly to the sanctuary construction itself. Now let us focus now to the sanctuary construction. I would like to read 2SR 215. So let us read 2SR 215. The two apartments, 2SR 215. The two apartments were separated by a veil. In the Day of Atonement, the veil or door of the earthly tabernacle was opened and the high priest went in. But let it be remembered that the door, which is the veil, was left open while the high priest officiated. Thus, the two apartments became one. For this reason, the congregation were not permitted in the holy place on that day as they were at other times. For the veil being lifted, the holy place also became most holy. So while the door to the most holy was open, the entrance to the holy was closed. So let us focus now to the sanctuary construction. So this is the sanctuary in the third heaven. So there is a veil. This is holy place, most holy place. It is third heaven. Third heaven. Now what will happen when the inner door will be open? The entire sanctuary will become most holy. But according to the shepherd's rod, before, brothers and sisters, before the entrance to the most holy place will be open, the door in the holy must be closed first. And after the door in the holy place, the entrance to the holy place is closed. That is the time that the veil will be lifted. And when the veil will be lifted, the entire sanctuary will become most holy place. Now, what happened when the veil was lifted? The entire sanctuary was surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal. Sea of glass, clear as crystal. Now, we need now to study, brothers and sisters, the sanctuary construction before we will study the sanctuary service. The mere fact that the sanctuary construction is mentioned first before the sanctuary service indicates that in order for us to understand the sanctuary service, we need to understand first the sanctuary construction. So what we understand concerning the sanctuary construction when the entire sanctuary will become most holy place. At the time when the veil was lifted, then it was surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal. Now, I would like to read 2SR page 198 and page 199, entitled Sea of Glass. You see? So the title is Sea of Glass, 2SR 198 and 199. And before the throne, there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. Revelation 4 verse 6. According to the punctuation in the verse just quoted, it means that the beasts are in the midst of the throne and round about the throne. It would be impossible for them to be in the midst and also round about the throne. Mercy seat. If they were in the midst of the throne, they would be taking the place of God, the judge, and his son, the Lamb. Thus, we conclude that the first clause of the verse is mispunctuated. By omitting the colon, the scripture would read as follows. And before the throne, there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne. Thus, it is the sea of glass in the midst and before the throne, and not the beast. The sea of glass proceeds from the throne, where in the most holy place, and is a symbol of life eternal, in the same manner as the lamp is a symbol of Christ our advocate. Then it says, the sea is the most extensive body upon the earth. Thus, it is used to represent eternity. Clear as crystal, denotes perfection, freedom from sin and defects. In Revelation 15 verse 2, we read, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire. Fire would be the only perfect symbol that could be used to represent life. Therefore, the sea of glass proceeds from God's throne and represents life eternal, which is the reward of those whose names are in the Lamb's book of life within the 7 seals. And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abominations or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. Revelation 21 verse 27. In the judgment, it is granted to the saints that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name, to stand on the sea of glass, life eternal. Revelation 15 verse 2. Now, let us focus, brothers and sisters, to the sanctuary construction. Now, we know, I would like to first, on track number 3, I think page 18, or page 17 and 18. So, let us study closely. I would like to begin on page 16, then 17 and 18. Both John's and Daniel's vision reveal that the throne in the sanctuary was not there from the beginning of the creation of God. The sanctuary already exists even before. I would like to read 2SR because we are studying the sanctuary construction. So we need to have a definite understanding concerning the sanctuary construction. 2SR 188. The plan of salvation preceded the fall. The fall mentioned here is the beginning of sin. So the plan of salvation had been laid down even before there were created beings. And that is called the mystery of God. And it says, the heavenly sanctuary being for confession and the blotting out of sin, it could not have existed before sin entered. So when sin entered into Satan, that is the time that the sanctuary construction had been established by God. For what purpose? For confession and blotting out of sin. And it says, the heavenly sanctuary being for confession and the blotting out of sin, it could not have existed before sin entered and brought about the necessity for such a structure. So when sin entered to Satan, then the sanctuary construction had been established. Although the plan of salvation had always existed, the plan of salvation had been existed even before there was no created being and was revealed in and by the sanctuary service. So, how does the plan of salvation had been revealed? Revealed in the sanctuary construction and revealed by the sanctuary service. Sanctuary construction and service. Thus, the plan that preceded the fall is found in Christ, in whom there was and is redeeming power for all. So, at least, brothers and sisters. Now, let us go back to our reading in track number 3, pages 16 and page 17. It says, both John's and Daniel's vision revealed that the throne in the sanctuary was not there from the beginning of the creation of God. The throne. But the sanctuary was already there because the sanctuary exists immediately after sin entered to Satan. But there was no throne as yet, even in the beginning of the creation of God. Or from the days of Moses, even in the days of Moses, there was no throne in that sanctuary. So the sanctuary is still empty. There was no throne. Or yet from the hour that Christ ascended on high. So even in the time when Jesus Christ ascended to the heavenly sanctuary or into heaven, still there was no throne there. So those who teach that the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary begin when Jesus Christ ascended on heaven, that is erroneous doctrine because the shepherds had made it so plain. There was no throne at that time. And then it says, or even from the days of pagan Rome. We know that according to 2SR 139, the period of pagan Rome ended in 476 AD. So even in 476 AD, there was no throne, brothers and sisters, in the heavenly sanctuary. And then it says, that indeed it was not set up until after the fall of pagan Rome. You see, after the fall, when was the pagan Rome was fallen? 476 AD. When the little horn of the nondescript beast came up in the days of ecclesiastical Rome. When does the days of ecclesiastical Rome? 538 to 1798. So, 538 to 1798. So the statement, in the days of ecclesiastical Rome, so within this period of time, the throne in the sanctuary in heaven, in the third heaven, was set up. But where? In the holy place. In the holy place. Not yet in the most holy place. Only in the holy place. Why? Because let us read the statement. And at track number 3, page 18, it says, hence, his mediatorial work began first in the holy place. So, where Christ's mediatorial work began first in the holy place. Now, the question is that thrones were set up during the period of ecclesiastical Rome. The word during must be within the period of time. And the answer is found on 2SR. Let us read. 2SR page 100. Let's read the statement. 2SR page 196. It says, I would like to read the portion. The reason why the 4 beasts has 6 wings. They are to point out the seal under which the judgment began. The 6th seal, therefore 6 wings. But that is, brothers and sisters, pointing to the judgment in the holy place. When does the 6th seal commence? Let us read 2SR. 2SR page 213. The 6th seal opens with the Lesbos earthquake, November 1, 1755. So why is it that there is earthquake? Although that is literal earthquake. So when the thrones were set up, there is an unusual occurrence on the earth. That is earthquake. What is the earthquake? In track number 5 on page 34, let's read. In the main, however, the trumpets and the seals portray an event which is future from John's time and which takes place in heaven. So both the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets, the main prophetic event takes place in the heavenly sanctuary. Although they also portray kindred events. So earthquake is kindred event. Because we are talking, why is it that it was inscribed in plural form? Kindred events. Because there are 2 significance of earthquake. The earthquake in the sitting of the throne in the holy place, brothers and sisters. And the earthquake in the sitting of the throne, brothers and sisters, in the second judicial session. And that is why it must have a double application, as stated in 2SR 214, right? In 2SR 214, it says here, according to the following testimony, Revelation 6 verse 12, and we know Revelation 6 verse 12, that this earthquake, darkening of the sun, moon become blood, and the falling of the stars. So, kindred events, related events, and contributory event, and consequent to the main prophetic event. So, earthquake, darkening of the sun, moon become blood, and falling of the stars. So, earthquake, kindred event, then darkening of the sun, related event, then moon become blood, contributory event, and falling of the stars, consequent to the main prophetic event. What is the main prophetic event? Sealing. The sealing, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read 2SR 214. According to the following testimony, Revelation 6 verse 12 to 17 has a double application. And it is clear that these verses also refer to the time of the purification of God's church. So it's really a broad subject, brothers and sisters. Studying the sanctuary construction, the statement is reality. If you could be able to understand the entire sanctuary construction, then you will understand the plan of redemption. The entire plan of redemption. How many? The numbers of all the created beings of God. Seraphims, cherubims, and the inhabitants of the 11 planets, and all the saved ones. How many the numbers? All of them. I would like to read, brothers and sisters, in track number, track number 13. Here in track number 13, this is the exact number of all the creatures, or together with angels. Let me read to you. In track number 13. Track number 13, page 39. New York City and the New Jerusalem. So, I will no longer read the entire paragraph, but I would like to read only the portion on page 39 and page 40 in track 13. And the city light 4 square, and the length is as large as the breadth, 12,000 furlongs. Revelation 21 verse 16. The city is 375 miles on its side, making a perfect square. Its area, therefore, is 140,625 square miles, or 90 million acres. You see, brothers and sisters? Or 3,920,400,000,000 square feet, approximately 430 times greater than the area of New York City, allowing 100 square feet to each person, or a space 10 feet square. The city would hold. So this is the entire created beings. Because God will not create that there is a room in the New Jerusalem, brothers and sisters, but with all the created beings will be there during 1,000 years. All the saved ones, all the inhabitants on the 11 planets, all the angels, within 1,000 years, they will be in the New Jerusalem, by which the city, the New Jerusalem, would hold, brothers and sisters, it says 39,204,000,000 persons. So how many? All the created beings rebuilt in the sanctuary construction, together with the cherubims, together with the cherubims, together with the inhabitants of the 11 planets, and all the saved ones, the 4 classes of redeems, all of them numbering 39,204,000,000 persons. Now, let us go back to our subject, brothers and sisters, concerning the sanctuary construction. Let us go back to the subject, brothers and sisters, that the special event, right? The special event is the cleansing of the sanctuary. The sanctuary itself must be cleansed when? At the end of the 2,300 years. So let us read, for example, 2TG. 2TG number, that's this statement given by the voice of inspiration. 2TG number 42, that the cleansing of the sanctuary is after the 2,300 years. 2TG 42, page 30 and 33. And the angel explained that the cleansing of the sanctuary, cleansing it from both error and hypocrisy, takes place after the 2,300 days during the time of the end. But we are focusing first to the sanctuary construction, the first one to be cleansed. Why? Brothers and sisters, that the sanctuary in the third heaven, it needs to be cleansed. Now, we discuss first the proceedings in the holy place. When does the proceedings in the holy place begins? Of course, before it will begin, the thrones must be set up first. And when it was set up, the answer is found in tract number 3, right? It says, during the period of ecclesiastical Rome. So let us go back again to tract number 3, page 17. It says that indeed it was not set up until after the fall of pagan Rome. When does the pagan Rome fallen? 476 AD. 2SR 139. When the little horn of the nondescript beast came up in the days of ecclesiastical Rome. So the statement in the days, meaning in the period of ecclesiastical Rome. When does the period of ecclesiastical Rome? 538 to 1798. Why is it that the poor beast has 6 wings? To indicate that the judgment began under the 6th seal, the opening of the 6th seal. When does the opening of the 6th seal? The answer is found in 213. The 6th seal, it says, opens with the Lisbon earthquake, November 1, 1755. So that is the result. November 1, 1755, the sitting of the throne in the holy place. And because of that event, the result, there is earthquake on the earth. There was earthquake. And that earthquake is pointing also to the sitting of the throne, brothers and sisters, in the second judicial session. But let us study closely. Is it literal in the second judicial session, the earthquake? No, the Shepherd's Rod teaches that it is not literal. There are 2 significance of the earthquake. Represent the shaking in the church, and the second one is the slaughtering. Now, for example, I would like to read to you in tract number 15. Tract number 15. Here in tract number 15, on page 55, it says, these global disturbances and celestial exhibition between the year 1755 and 1833. So, the 4 phenomenon, earthquake, darkening of the sun, moon become blood, and then the falling of the stars, it says, appear to be forecast that of the things which takes place during the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Brothers and sisters, so what is the last one, which is consequent to the main prophetic event? Brothers and sisters, the falling of the stars. When does the falling of the stars occur? November 13, 1833. So that is the consequent to the main prophetic event. What is the main prophetic event? Heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to show to you. So this is the fourth phenomenon. November 1, 1755, that is the commencement of the sitting of the throne in the holy place. So, sitting or the holy place is being prepared. Now, the next event is May 19, 1780, then May 20, 1780. May 19, 1780, that is darkening of the sun. May 20, 1780, that is moon become blood. But let us go to the consequent to the main prophetic event, November 13, 1833. So since it is the consequent to the main prophetic event, so the proceedings in the holy place commenced in 1833. Although William Miller did not understand, brothers and sisters, the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, but why is it that God raised up William Miller in 1833 to proclaim the judgment? Because in reality, in the other side, it is also perfectly indicating that the judgment is in session where? In the holy place. Now, I would like to read White House Recruiter on page, let's read White House Recruiter, the statement on page, so this is the statement given in page 19. White House Recruiter, page 19. The only revelation of new prophetic truth subsequent to the Reformation is the announcement of the year in which was to begin the work of cleansing the sanctuary, primarily in behalf of the dead, based on Daniel 8:14, but not then fully understood. As its announcement was made by the First-day Adventists, it necessarily follows that they were the third group of servants with a new and distinctive message. And as is well known, they started proclaiming it in the year 1833, announcing that the cleansing of the sanctuary was to commence in the year 1844. Thus, in 1833, the clock of parabolic time struck the hour of 6. But on the other hand, since God is a perfect God, the reason that God raised up William Miller proclaiming the message in 1833, fear God and give glory to Him, for the judgment is in session, perfectly corroborating to the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary, in the holy place, the commencement of the judicial proceedings in the holy place. And who are they that had been judged in the holy place from 1833 to 1843? 10 years, which is exactly corroborating to the subject 6th trumpet. Before the high priest will enter to the most holy place, there must be 10 days sounding of the blowing of the trumpets in Leviticus 23. And 10 days equivalent to 10 years. So, this is what happened, brothers and sisters, in 1833. So, all the books is in the holy place. So, what does it mean by cleansing of the sanctuary, brothers and sisters? And why is it that we need to understand the sanctuary construction? Because if all the books in the holy place will remain there, and then the veil will be lifted, and then the entire sanctuary will become most holy, and the entire sanctuary will be surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal, by which the significance of sea of glass is eternal life, eternity, then all the wicked will be saved. And also, brothers and sisters, it will be contradictory to the divine rule given by inspiration that the only names allowed to enter into the most holy place are the names of the righteous. Now, if all the books remain there until the veil was lifted up, then how could you be able to implement such divine principle that only the names of the righteous are allowed to enter into the most holy place, whereas all the books are still in the most holy place? When the veil was lifted, the entire sanctuary, brothers and sisters, became most holy, and all the books, the names of all the wicked angels, the names of all the wicked human beings are still in the most holy place. Then, brothers and sisters, no need for such divine rule given by God the Father, saying that the only names that are allowed to brought into His presence are the names of the righteous. those who receive the seal of God, because the seal is their permit. Now, let us read the statement in the Shepherd's Rod. Now, let's read, brothers and sisters, 2SR page 184. It says, 2SR page 184. The virgins were called to meet him, and thus by faith go in with him to appear before the Father, the great judge. The seal is the permit. It places their names in the Lamb's book of life, and thus it grants to them the right to appear before the Father in the judgment, not in person, but in figure, thus having their sins blotted out. So, what is the most holy place? Blotting out of sins. And whose sins to be blotted out? Only the righteous. The statement in tract number 3, it says here in tract number 3 on page 9, it says, I would like to read. For in the investigative judgment, the books are opened, and the deeds done in the flesh are brought to light for a final reckoning before the Ancient of Days. All who have stood fast to the end will then forever have their sins blotted from the books, and their names retained therein, while all who are not overcomers will then forever have their sins retained in the books and their names blotted therefrom. So the sins of the wicked will never be blotted out. It will remain forever in the book of records. So the only sins to be blotted out are the sins of the righteous. And that is the reason that only the righteous are allowed to enter into the most holy place, because there is no reason for the wicked to be brought into the most holy place, by which the only proceedings in the most holy place is blotting out of sins. Then for what for? That their names will be brought into the most holy place. And besides, the statement is very plain. The seal is the permit to enter into the most holy place. And the seal of the living God will never be, brothers and sisters, be given to the wicked. It says here in 2SR 192, only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life are brought into the presence of God in the most holy place. And then it says, the book sealed with 7 seals in the right hand of the great judge must contain the names of those whose sins are to be blotted out. And whose sins to be blotted out? Only the sins of the righteous. So it says here in page 196, those whose names are written within the book of the 7 seals are the ones whose sins are to be blotted out with the precious blood of Christ. Thus praise and honor and glory is due to our God forever and ever. And in that book, which is sealed with 7 seals, in 2SR 199, it says, the book containing the names of all the righteous, beginning with Adam and unto the close of provision, the end of the gospel, 7 seals. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. Revelation 5 verse 1. Because the book contains the names of all who are sealed with the seal of God, His truth, it is called the book of seals, also the Lamb's book of life. So the reason why the Shepherd's Rod inscribed it in plural form, tract number 3, page 7. Tract number 3, page 7, it says, Lamb's books. It says that not every name that has been entered in the Lamb's books, plural. Why is it? It is plural because the Lamb's books, brothers and sisters, for example, Lamb's book of life, which is mixed multitude. But the other Lamb's book of life is sealed with 7 seals. That Lamb's book of life, which is sealed with 7 seals, the only names to be inscribed into that book are the righteous, those who obtain the seal of the living God. And that is why it's called sealed with 7 seals, because the only names to be inscribed into that book are those names who obtain the seal of the living God. So, brothers and sisters, so we would like to show to you again now. So it's easy to understand that I would like to show to you what happened in October 22, 1844. So I would like to put here. So this is the third heaven. Then we have second heaven. So third heaven, right? So this is the sanctuary in the third heaven. So holy place, most holy place. Therefore, brothers and sisters, there must be sanctuary on the second heaven. And this is the sanctuary by which the special session occurred when Jesus Christ ascended to heaven in 31 AD. Although, we'll discuss that on the other subject. So, before this door will be closed, all the books, brothers and sisters, must be transferred to the second heaven. So, that's what it means that the sanctuary is cleansed. So, the sanctuary itself had been cleansed. And since this sanctuary had been cleansed, then when the door is closed, then the entrance to the most holy place was opened, then the entire sanctuary surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal. And since it is already cleansed, then the only names to be brought into this place are the righteous, those that have been cleansed in the holy place. And it is called final cleansing. This is a final cleansing which is called blotting out of sins. Brothers and sisters, final cleansing. Although the proclamation, the announcement of blotting out of sins takes place in the most holy place, but the actual blotting out of sins is in the holy place because the books, brothers and sisters, of records is in the holy place. If that book, the book of records by which the sins of the wicked and the sins of the righteous are commingled is in the most holy place, then brothers and sisters, the wicked, brothers and sisters, must also obtain salvation. And it cannot be because God revealed the plan of redemption through sanctuary construction. So in October 22, 1844, so the statement, brothers and sisters, that the cleansing is only one day, pointing to the final cleansing. That on that day of atonement, brothers and sisters, all the books transferred to the holy place in second heaven. And then after all the books have been transferred, the entrance is closed, and then the entrance to the most holy place opened, and then the entire sanctuary become clear, surrounded by sea of glass, brothers and sisters, clear as crystal. Now, I would like to read to you track number 1. Let's read track number 1. Page 8. Track number 1, page 8. Let us read. Maybe you can read page 7, brothers and sisters. And so let us read. Since the throne seen by Isaiah was a trained retinue, and since as it entered into the temple, the post of the door moved at the voice of him, cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Isaiah 6 verse 1 to 4. So, that is the seraphims. So, according to this reading, the seraphims, brothers and sisters, is in the most holy place. And it says, it therefore is a traveling throne, whereas both the one of Revelation 4, having the sea of glass. So what is the throne in Revelation chapter 4? That is judgment throne, or it is called judicial throne. Before it, and the one of Revelation 22, having the river of life, before it are stationary thrones. So there are two stationary thrones, the judicial throne, which is called judgment throne, and the administrative throne. In the judicial throne, the judgment throne, the one that came out is the sea of glass. But in the administrative throne, the one that came is the river of life. And since the illustration of God is perfect, so we can understand, brothers and sisters, it is God who created the heavens and the earth and also the things that they're in. So we know that why is it that all the waters from the river goes to the sea? Because the sea is lower than the river. And that illustration is perfect because the administrative throne, brothers and sisters, this is the administrative throne. Administrative throne. The river of life came out, and this river of life entered into the sea. Where is the sea, brothers and sisters? In the sanctuary. So it is most holy place. So this is the river of life connect to the sea, which is in the most holy place. Sea of glass, clear as crystal. So the administrative throne is located in the upper part of the sanctuary because the river must be in the upper part. And then the sanctuary, brothers and sisters, since it is in the lower part of the administrative throne, you can find here the sea of glass, clear as crystal, clear as crystal. So that is the description. In October 22, 1844. So this is the third heaven. Right, brothers and sisters? But here in the holy place, brothers and sisters, it was illustrated as ocean, the ocean of grace. I would like to, the ocean of grace. This is the sea, and this is the ocean, brothers and sisters. Now, so in October 22, 1844, it must be October 21. October 21, 1844, all the books transferred to the holy place. And then in October 22, 1844, the door is closed. And then the entrance to the most holy place opened, and then the entire sanctuary became most holy, and then surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal. So, all the names that passed the proceedings in the holy place will be brought into the most holy place for final cleansing. What is the final cleansing? Blotting out of sins. So, this is the preliminary cleansing, then final cleansing, brothers and sisters. Now, let's go back to track number 1. Let's go back again in track number 1 on page 8. Though the one which Ezekiel saw is similar to the one which Isaiah was shown, yet there are distinct and separate thrones. For each of the seraphims of Isaiah's vision has 6 wings, while each of the cherubims of Ezekiel's visions has but 4. In the latter, moreover, the cherubim stood under the throne, whereas in the former, they stood above it. On record, therefore, there are 4 thrones, 2 stationary and 2 traveling. Now, brothers and sisters, how could you illustrate the vision, the fulfillment of Ezekiel? The vision of Ezekiel. If the only sanctuary construction, brothers and sisters, that you understand is in the 3rd heaven. Now, I would like to illustrate that statement. So this is the sanctuary, 3rd heaven. 3rd heaven. So, this is the sanctuary. So, the throne here is located in the most holy place. This is the sanctuary. The entire, since October 22, 1844, the entire sanctuary became most holy. Now, if this is the only sanctuary that we understand, and no other, when Ezekiel chapter 1 will be fulfilled, what is the description? Brothers and sisters, what is the description? The description says, the seraphims stood above the throne, and the cherubims stood under the throne. Now, if the only throne is in the most holy place, then if to illustrate the illustration, the throne is here. The throne is in the holy place. If the seraphims stood above the throne, there is no other, brothers and sisters, that above the sanctuary in the 3rd heaven, that is the administrative throne. Then the seraphims are taking place. The throne of God the Father and the Son of the living God is standing on the administrative throne. Very contradictory to the Bible, brothers and sisters. But it completely revealed that it points out to the time, brothers and sisters, during when Ezekiel chapter 1 will be fulfilled, by which the throne in the holy place, brothers and sisters, there Jesus Christ is making the judicial proceedings under the 6th seal and 7th seal. Although, brothers and sisters, there was proceeding in the holy place in 1844 to 2011, brothers and sisters. But there, at that time, brothers and sisters, there was no thrones as yet, because the thrones is in the most holy place, because Jesus Christ is in the most holy place. How about the thrones that had been set up in the holy place in 1833? That is in the 3rd heaven. That is in the 3rd heaven. So the thrones that had been set up in 1833, in 1755 rather, November 1, 1755, up to November 13, 1833, that is in the 3rd heaven. So there was no throne here. And the angels, both seraphims and cherubims, is in the most holy place in the 3rd heaven at that time. But at the time when Jesus Christ will finish the work of the first, those will be resurrected at the general resurrection, then Jesus Christ will transfer to the holy place for the proceedings of the last 2 seals, the 6th seal and the 7th seal. And at that time, the thrones must be set up in the holy place, brothers and sisters. And when the throne is set up, so at that time, the illustration, the cherubims is standing under the throne in the 3rd heaven, and the seraphims is standing above the throne in the 2nd heaven. That is the statement in track number 1, page 8. So I would like to read again, brothers and sisters. And it is in absolute importance, very necessary to understand these things, because as we dig deeper, brothers and sisters, we cannot comprehend the true meaning of the entire judicial proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary without this knowledge. Otherwise, the shepherd's rod would not say it, that through the sanctuary construction, the plan of redemption had been revealed, but together with the sanctuary service. How could you understand the sanctuary service if you did not understand the sanctuary construction? All the Bedouin, what they understand is they did not know where is the proceedings in 1844. Third heaven, second heaven. In the third heaven, that is judicial session. In the second heaven, that is judicial sitting. But they have no understanding concerning about it, although it is very plain in the shepherd's rod. And why? Because the truth can never be understood by human wisdom. Brothers and sisters, only through the Spirit of Christ. And it was guaranteed according to track 15. And in our study of the subject of the seven seals, this is the message that had been given by God to antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, that antitypical Elijah the Tishbite challenged all the prophets of Baal. If they were not prophets of Baal, please explain the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Brothers and sisters, if they could not explain anything, then that is the strongest proof by which concretely builds the absolute fact, impregnable evidence that they were the prophets of Baal. Because according to the Bible and the prophecy, antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, unto him have been given all the goods, and that goods pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, for example, I would like to read to you the statement in the Bible. Matthew chapter 20. It says here in Matthew chapter 20, let us read the statement. Verse 8, so when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard said unto his steward. What is the another term of steward, brothers and sisters? Or servant. So, who is he, the steward mentioned here? It says, so when even was come. What time by which God raised up this steward? At even. Does this steward Beti-Hotep? Absolutely, it could not be Beti-Hotep. Because it perfectly corroborating to that servant that God raised during supper time, because even is supper time. Now let us read 2TG 44, 41 and 42. So let us read a statement given by the voice of inspiration. In this parable are seen two periods of time. The first period is while the gospel has made many. Verse 16, to the marriage supper, the time whom the apostles to the time of his last servant with the last message God sends to his people, the times all things are ready. You see, the times that all things are ready. The next period is the time in which his last servant served. Verse 17, so the last servant is the servant by which the time God commanded that servant to serve. What is to serve? The Last Supper. This servant is sent, we are told, at supper time. Therefore, the message that he served is supper time. So, the message that have been given by God to Sister White is breakfast. The message that was given by God to Beti-Hotep is lunch. But the last servant, that is supper time. And that is the reason why there are 3 barley cakes, because barley represent present truth. The present truth during breakfast, brothers and sisters. Because the statement, I would like to read in the Old Symbolic Code to connect this reading. Old Symbolic Code. Let me see. 1 Symbolic Code 11 to 12 page 2. 1 Symbolic Code 11 to 12 page 2. Note that the call came first to the ones who were well known and well to do, the foremost in the city. For one had both a piece of ground, another 5 yoke of oxen, and the other had married a wife. The fact that the servant was sent to re-invite those that had been bidden before proves that the call of this parable is not to come first to a people who know not of Christ and his wedding, but to his church. It also proves that they believed, for they did not argue the facts concerning the wedding, but excused themselves because they were more interested in the things of this world than in the kingdom of Christ. Therefore, those who with one consent began to make excuse must represent a class of church members and the ones whom the very last message found in a sad deception. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 3, page 252 to 53. Yet believing that they were ready to meet the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Hence, this call does not represent the 1844 message, when all things began to be ready, but rather at a latter time when all things are ready. So that is very plain. 1 Symbolic Code 11 to 12, page 2. So it commenced in 1844 when all things began to be ready. So in this study, we can understand that the present truth in 1844 is represented by breakfast, The present truth in the days of BT Hotep represented by lunch, and the last present truth under the seventh seal is the present truth, brothers and sisters, in the supper time, when God sent the last servant to serve the supper time, as stated in that reading in 2TG. Now let us go back again. In 2TG number 44, page 41 and 42. It says, the next period is the time. So, when does the time all things ready? In the days of BT Hotep. But that is not the last period, because it says the next period. After the things in 1844, that is the period when things began to be ready. In 1930, the period when all things are ready. But the next period, the last period, is the time in which his last servant served. Verse 17, this servant is sent, we are told, at supper time, at the end of the day, indicating that he bears the last message. Moreover, he is at first sent to those who have previously been bidden, that is, to those who were already in the gospel truth in the church. So the statement at even could not be the close of provision for the church, but pointing to the close of provision in the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary pertaining to the judgment that pertains to the dead. When the judgment that pertains to the dead is closed, is finished, that is the time by which God called this steward, this last messenger, saying, so when even was come, because if you will say that the even here is the, although it can be explained in the subject, the cross, because we know that in 12 noon, the sun darkened, but it reappeared on 3 p.m., but at full strength. Therefore, sunset, supposed to be sunset in 6 p.m., but the sun at that time is still shining at 3 p.m. But it was already sunset in natural realm. So we called it in the same in the days of Joshua. Although we'll explain that in the subject of the cross, the 3 intervals, or the particular rule, brothers and sisters. Now I would like to read Matthew 20 verse 8. So when even was come, meaning when the judicial proceedings of the dead was finished, the Lord of the vineyard said unto his steward, call the laborers and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. What is, brothers and sisters, call the laborers and give them their hire? Cannot be construed that this servant, he is the one to resurrect those who died, brothers and sisters. No, but rather, this servant has a complete understanding the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary from start to finish. What is the commencement in the most holy place? Blotting out of sins. And what is the closing work? Granting of rewards. This is what it means, brothers and sisters, to give their hire, granting of rewards. So that is signifying that this last servant, all the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary had been given the full information by Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters. That's what it means in Matthew 20 on verse 8. And it could not be BT Hotep, brothers and sisters, because that servant is raised by God when the proceedings in the holy place pertaining to the dead is finished. That's what it means by sunset. It is finished. It is closed. Then God gave the full information. Now, when? Let us go back again to the promise in 2SR 179. 2SR page 179. It says, who then is a faithful and wise servant whom his Lord had made ruler over his household to give them to the world meet in due season, present truth. Verse 45 in Matthew 24. Note that there is a question as to whom this faithful servant could be. Then I would like to go immediately the statement. The significance, it says, note that there is a question to whom this faithful servant could be. If that people to whom primarily this gospel was committed had been faithful, then the following promise would have been theirs. What is the promise? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall come, that he shall make him ruler over all his good. Verses 46 and 47. The significance of all his goods, first, is the finishing of the gospel, meaning the entire, what is the gospel? Represented by the 7 seals. Right? So the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. And it says, second, bringing everlasting righteousness. What is bringing everlasting righteousness? The fulfillment, the perfect fulfillment of the eternal purpose of God, according to consecrated way to Christian perfection. And third, ushering in the kingdom of Christ. What a wonderful promise. And accordingly, according to the shepherd's rod, the fulfillment of that promise is at the time when Jesus Christ will visit the earth. So let us read in 11 symbolic code number 12, page 7. It says, 11 symbolic code number 12, page 7. Verily, I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. Who is he? Let us read first to find the answer. 11 symbolic code number 3, page 6. 11 symbolic code number 3, page 5 and 6. Page 5. Verily, I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. Then it says, page 6. This is speaking of him who faithfully gives meat in due season. The goods is present truth. We are told in Malachi that before the great and terrible day of the Lord, Elijah is to come. Then when Elijah appears, his message will be present truth. So who is he? That is antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. And it says here in 11 symbolic code 12:7, this verse implies that God has not as yet made his servant ruler over all his goods. But when he proves true by tending to his business of faithfully giving to his household meat in due season until the Lord comes. The word until, according to track number 3, page 66, is up to the time when Jesus Christ visits the earth, then God is going to make him ruler over all his goods. That is the promise. And that is also portraying the vision of Ezekiel, that the mission of Jesus Christ in such visitation is to give message to Ezekiel. Track number 1, page 12 and 13. The object of the Lord's coming in his throne. As the prophet was looking toward the north, he saw a great cloud coming like a whirlwind to earth. Watching with intense interest, is drawing nearer and nearer. Finally, he saw the living creatures, the wheels and the rest, the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. Whereupon I fell, his eyes upon my face, and I heard a voice of the one that spake, unmistakably, the Lord himself come to give a message to Ezekiel. What is the purpose of that visitation? To give message to Ezekiel. That is the first invisible coming of Jesus Christ. And according to the shepherd's rod in track number 1, page 29 and page 30, it says, the reader will note that though the prophet was bidden to go to speak to his people, yet instead of being told what to say, he was commanded, open thy mouth and eat that I gave thee. And then it says, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people were found in the book which he ate, the book can be none other than the Bible. So what does it mean that the message that had been given by God to Ezekiel is the Bible? The plan of redemption, because that is the Bible contained the formula, the complete formula of the plan of redemption. 1 TG number 10, page 18. And that visitation was already in the past. That was October 10, 2021. In Gregorian calendar, that is April 1, 2020. Then after that visitation, immediately Jesus Christ returned to the heavenly sanctuary and the proceedings in the holy place begins. The judgment for the living begins in October 2, 2020. And it is still in progress and it will be finished this coming March 27, 2021. By which in Bible calendar, that was October 10, 2022. So, brothers and sisters, we will continue this subject. And there are a lot of information that we need to share to you. Although, even myself, I do not know which will be the first one that I need to share to all the brethren because of the abundance of the message that have been given by God unto us. And we were so grateful and so thankful with the Lord. In spite of our unworthiness, we are not worthy. We do not know. We cannot explain. Why is it that this message had been entrusted by God unto us? How many goods that had been given by God to the servant? 11. And the voice of inspiration is very plain, brothers and sisters, that Christ's illustrations are perfect. Right? That is very plain. Christ's illustrations are perfect. Since there are 11 goods, why is it that 11, brothers and sisters? Let us read first Matthew 25. I would like to go immediately to verse 28. Take therefore the talent from him, so those only 1 talent, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. 1 plus 10, 11. 11 talents. Why 11 talents, brothers and sisters? What is the 1 talent? The 1 talent is that pointing to the Sabbath keepers, by which the only things they understand is that Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place, and that is all. They did not improve their talent. But this steward, this servant, after he obtained 10 talents, another talent was added. 11 talents all in all. Now in 2TG, it says here in 2TG, number 11. So, we know that the shepherd's rod is very plain, saying that the talents here mentioned, 11, 14, and 15, quoting Matthew 25, verse 14 to 30. I will no longer read Matthew 25, verse 14 to 30. 2TG 11, 14, and 15. It says, the talents in this parable represents the Lord's goods. What is the Lord's goods? In 11 Symbolico 3:6, His timely messages for the people. Present truth. So, why is it 11? Because it points out to the proceedings in the most holy place, 5 proceedings. The proceedings in the holy place, 5 proceedings. And the proceeding on the earthly sanctuary, 1 proceeding. 11 in all. Brothers and sisters, from heavenly sanctuary to earth. So, the happenstance from heaven to earth, it was given by God to that servant, the last servant. 11 talents. And according to track number 8, I would like to read track number 8. It says here, on page, although several times we read this reading, but I would like to read again. 29 and 30 in track number 8. Also, there are 2 distinct parables of the talents. Matthew 25 verse 15 to 13 and Luke 19, 13 to 27. Both of which pointedly enter the picture in its present setting. In the ones are 3 servants, in the other 10 servants. This significant difference shows that the former has only a local application. You see, brothers and sisters, remember, if you will study the parable in Matthew 20, there are only 7 universal movements. And the last universal movement is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We will explain that later. Therefore, the 11th hour is only local. It is not universal. So the 10 servants in Luke 19 is pointing, brothers and sisters, universality, by which pointing to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to the Davidian brothers and sisters. But the parable in Matthew 25, only 3 servants represented by the Trinity. It says, this significant difference shows that the former has only a local application, whereas the latter has a worldwide application. So, no wonder why is that the Davidian are worldwide, brothers and sisters. But the 11th hour, brothers and sisters, is not worldwide. Represented by number 3, it says, the scripture. It says that in the scriptures, number 10 stands for universality, and number 3 for the Trinity in the church. And in track number 3, 1934 edition, the Trinity in the church, that is the true church. That is the true church. I would like to read to you. Here in track number 3, 1934 edition. So the 11th hour church, one of the significance is that it is not universal. And since, brothers and sisters, the Davidians are universal, it is not the 11th hour church, which is the house of David, but they are the 7 antitypical brothers of David. So it says here, I would like to read 1934 edition, track number 3, page 68. The number here derived, being the exact number of the first fruits on the day of Pentecost, proves that the little group was the product of the true church, the effort of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. You see, hence as number 3 is symbolical of the Trinity. So what is that? The Trinity in the church represents the true church of God. So, we will continue this subject on our next episode, hoping that the good Lord will bless and would help us. We love you, brethren, hoping to see you in the soon coming kingdom of God. Have a beautiful and wonderful evening.